All right, peeps, we're going to try something out here. We're going to try filming. I'm actually at the gym right now. We're going to see how this is going to go. So it might work out, it might not. I'm just trying to move this over to here for a second, just get stuff out of the way. All right, let's get cooking here. Chapter 1.3 down here, energy and equilibria. So, yeah, we'll get that right about there. First law of thermodynamics. Principle of conservation of energy. Energy in a system can't be created or destroyed, just transformed. You can see this in food chains and energy production. So when you look at it, all energy comes from the sun. So like directly or indirectly. So the way it works out is the sun's light comes in, the sun causes plants to grow, photosynthesis, energy is transferred, plants get eaten by cows, which then transfers energy. And then we as humans eat the cows, which then gives us energy. And along the way, a lot of energy is lost through breathing, respiration, heat, movement. So energy is transferred off into quite a bit of things. So by the time you actually eat a cow, the amount of sun energy you're consuming, a lot was lost along the way. Same thing for fossil fuels and energy. So the sun, comes in, the plants grow, photosynthesis, the plants die, or even if the plants get eaten by dinosaurs, the dinosaurs die. And so when the plants die or the dinosaurs die, they become coal or oil, which then it stores massive amounts. It kind of condenses it, and then we as humans come along and burn the coal or the oil, which gives us quite a bit of energy in like one shot. So, but a lot of energy is lost along the way. So, yep. All right. Second law of thermodynamics. Entropy increases over time. Entropy is just like amount of disorder or just flat out craziness in a system. If you're in a middle school classroom or you've ever been in one, you know entropy, all right? Entropy's got a lot of crazy to it. It's amount of disorder. Entropy increases because of energy transformations, less energy to do work. So again, the more energy, like the more craziness you have going on, the more like the more rapidly energy gets transferred, the more you're going to have lost, the more less energy you're going to have to do work. This explains why food chains plus energy production is inefficient. So just by every time it gets transferred, you're going to be losing stuff. We might try this in a classroom where we'll do an activity where we'll fill a glass with water, and like we'll do it outside, and then we'll try transferring it very quickly. Like, so if you got to, if you're only transferring it between like 15 people, you're going to lose less water. But if you transfer it between 30 people, you're going to lose more water. And if you transfer it very quickly, that's when you lose the most. So, what I'm going to want you to do is define negative feedback loop in your own words and define positive feedback loop in your own words. Do not try giving me a Google definition. It will not work. It will not help you. It will not get you paid. So we're going to need these not just for like body systems, but for other systems as well. Just with how like how nature uses these. So, yep. If you're following along in the book so far, you are down here and we are all the way. Come on, book. Highlighted the whole thing there. We're all the way down here. We covered first law of thermodynamics, second law of thermodynamics. And we're probably down to page 30 by now. All right, let's get back up to the notes here. Ecosystems operate in stable equilibrium with negative feedback loops. So, um, so you have an ecosystem, some losses, some gains, but they generally stay stable because of negative feedback loops. And what they mean by this is this: a negative feedback loop is once we have too many rabbits, hey, you know what? We're going to start having more coyotes around, all right? Because the coyotes are going to eat the rabbits. Oh, but as soon as the rabbits start dying, guess what? The coyotes are like, yo, there's no food around here. We're out of this ecosystem. And they bounce or they die. So, yeah, so negative feedback loops look to really keep things stable. So they're a good thing. Positive feedback loops tend to mess things up by pushing towards a tipping point where a new equilibrium is made. So think of like COVID. It's like, how like we are like, oh, this is the new normal. This is the new normal. All right. Those were a lot of tipping points. And just like when you thought like stuff couldn't get worse, it did. And then it's like, okay, it was stable for a little bit. And then things got worse again. So we talk about tipping points a lot with climate change, with global warming, because the more we have global warming going on, there becomes like a new temperature. It used to be that the 80s might have been like a normal temperature for New England and United States, during the summer, like 80 degrees Fahrenheit, in that range. Now it's more like 90s and even getting up to the hundreds. So just, we keep hitting those new warmer temperatures for the tipping points. Let's see what we got. Resilience, in our case, how well a system avoids tipping points and maintains stability. So some areas are pretty resilient and they just don't change. They're pretty tough and stubborn. Think of your younger brother or sister. You're like, put on your shoes. And they're like, now. 15 minutes later, they're still arguing with you not to put on their shoes. And you're just like, you know, um, the ecosystems are along the same lines. Forests can have a lot of resilience to them. Other systems that aren't as dynamic are not as resilient. So if you're off in like Greenland and you're on, like snow covered ice, it's just not very resilient because, as the ice starts melting, polar bears start dying. It just doesn't have a whole lot of diversity up there. Look at a polar bear diet. Don't think they eat a whole lot of variety. So diversity and size of storages increases resilience though. So the more you have diversity and size of storage increases resilience. So like the more different plants you have, the more different animals you have, that makes it very resilient. The rainforest, very resilient. Size of storages. What we mean by that is it's just take a look at the ocean. How much heat can it absorb? Look at the amount of carbon that's kept in the rainforest. Stuff along that lines. Delays and loops make models and predictions tough. One thing that some people that doubt climate change they bring up is that the models aren't very that they doubt the models, and part of it's accurate. The models are our best guess, but there's delays and loops make models and predictions pretty tough. So energy and systems, let's see where we're at down here with the book. So I think for energy and systems, we're not all the way down here, are we? Tipping points, we did go into that. Wow, okay. Let me take a look up here, peeps, for a second. Equilibrium, complexity, and stability. All right. Hey, we're going to move on with this then with my notes. All right. Sunlight, energy and systems. Sunlight photosynthesis, caterpillar eats wasp, sunlight photosynthesis, caterpillar eats wasp eats caterpillar, bird eats wasp, but energy lost as heat. So this is an example of just how energy in a system, as it goes down the food chain, how it is not efficient, because you don't gain all the energy that plant, animal, whatever you just ate, what it had. There's a lot that's lost along the way. Incoming sunlight too. 30% is reflected, 50% converted to heat, 1% for photosynthesis. The rest powers wind evaporation. So when you look at it, sunlight that comes in, how much are plants really absorbing? 1%. Yep. I mean, as far as growth goes. So just by like the first stage of sunlight, which is this energy source that for all of our stuff, you're only absorbing 1%. Well, the plants are. So that's the first step. Sunlight comes in, the plants are only using 1% for their life for growth. Not a whole lot. Warning, deep thought. I don't really comprehend. Look, this is one that I have a tough time wrapping my head around. Over time, energy in the universe will be evened out until nothing can change. This might relate to TOK. What is the thermal death of the universe? All right. So let's ask somebody, and let's ask your TOK instructor. TOK is not a strong point of mine. It's one I'm working on. Energy conversions are never 100% efficient. You're always going to have loss. I don't care if you're talking about a car with a gasoline motor. You know, a lot goes off into heat. Electric motors, same deal. All right. Nothing is ever 100% efficient. Energy, you're always going to have some entropy. Energy is always lost to the environment as waste heat. Yeah, pretty much. When you start looking at your body, you eat like a big bowl of mac and cheese. All right. We're going to say you just eat a big, heavy, hot meal. Guess what? Your body is going to start producing heat. When you're eating lighter fare, your body has less calories in it, so you're putting out less heat. But every time you eat, your body is going to put out heat. So that's why if you haven't eaten breakfast and you're in an air-conditioned classroom, I know that's a first world problem, but chances are you're going to be cold. Energy is efficiency of photosynthesis is 1 to 2%, meaning that like the sunlight that comes in, you're only absorbing 1 to 2% of that for plant growth, photosynthesis. Herbivore efficiency is 10%. So that means the animal that goes and eats, the lettuce or the plant itself, the animal that does that has 10%. So that means out of all the energy of that plant that it eats, it's only getting 10%. Carnivore efficiency is 10%. So, once that lion comes along and eats that rabbit, the lion's only going to absorb 10% of that energy. So you start looking 1 to 2%, 10%, 10%. By the time like you as the carnivore are eating and you're at the top of the food chain, man, a lot of energy got lost along the way. Heat has high entropy because it really can't do anything but heat. Yeah. So there's a lot of craziness with heat. So when you heat something, it doesn't stay like hot. The heat transfers on out. And because of that, there's a lot of loss. So can't transmit electricity through heat really. Just doesn't really work. Let's see down here. I still am like bothered by how I can't get this. Looking to see where I left off here. Okay. I think we're up here with the carnivore. And now we're probably down here. All right. Let's see what we got here. We're down to solar, chemical, electrical, and potential are all low entropy energies. So when you start looking at it, transfer of electricity, like electricity is at a it's here in the United States, we use AC for our electrical grid, and it comes from a power plant miles and miles away, and then that energy in the form of electricity is sent down the line in alternating current. It can travel long distance without losing a whole lot of energy. Now, one of the things they have in Iceland, which is really cool, is they get energy from heat. I know I just told you about how heat doesn't really transfer energy very well, but like in this case, bear with me. So they tap the core of the, say, volcanic, eruptions and whatnot. They use the heat from that to generate electricity, which is very green because you're going to have those eruptions anyway. Now, what Iceland would love to do is figure out a system where they could send that electricity over wires to like Europe or North America and sell us some electricity. They get it kind of for free. So, electricity, though, you have line loss eventually, and that line loss, you're going to be losing some over that, over Iceland. That's just too great of a distance. I wish we could figure it out, though. That would really kind of help out a lot of people. But you have less entropy with electrical systems, solar, and potential energy as well, chemical as well. Complexity and stability. Ecosystems are complex because feedback links, flows, storages, you're never going to be able to get, everything, especially with like invasive species. Here in New England, we've got ash borers, which are, killing our like ash trees. And so, that's like one more thing that you would have to worry about with your ecosystem with feedback loops is just this new, thing that's now preying on the ash trees. So, and complexities makes for more stability, though. Yeah, because remember how we're talking about diversity? The more diverse something is, the more complex it is. Oh yeah, here we go talking about polar regions. So polar regions, you know, not a whole lot of different forms of life. I mean, what do you got up there? Seals, polar bears? I'm hard pressed to name something else. So, monocultures, farms that have one crop. Ooh, this is important too. This one right there. All right. Think about this. You're a farmer, right? You got one crop. Things are going good on good years. Like, hey, look, things are looking good. You're making good money. Hey, we're going to pick on New Jersey for tomatoes. Okay. Great stuff. Or Ireland for potatoes way back in the day. Yep. Cool, right? The only problem is when, when like a mold comes in or an insect that like eats all that crop, or there's drought conditions, when things go bad, you're earning no money. So we talk about this with like commercial farming. A lot of commercial farms, what they do is they find like that region and they find the one crop that is so good for that area, and they just grow just that crop because you can use the gasoline and petrol and petroleum products, like, to ship that product all over the place, where better for the environment and even better like long-term economically is if you have a diversity of crops on that land, because that way if something goes wrong, in that one crop, it's not a good year for it, you've got other crops to back it up. So historically here in Connecticut, we grow shade tobacco, which was used for the outer wrappers of cigars, I believe. But we'd also grow a lot of corn and also hay for livestock. So between those three, you would alternate the fields, and that way you don't all use the resources for all the fields. But also too, if one of those crops, like, something happened where there was an insect that moved in and guess what, it ate all the tobacco plants, hey, you're still making money off corn and hay. So having monocultures, it's kind of a gamble. So it's the old statement in English, never put all your eggs in one basket. All right, equilibrium down here, which now I know where equilibrium is. It's right here on page 31. So that's where we are in the book. Equilibrium, tendency to return to an original state following a disturbance. So if there has been, let's see this, after a hurricane, all right, how quickly does that ecosystem bounce back? If any of you have family in Puerto Rico, Hurricane Maria tore that place up, all right? It was basically like urban camping for months. And, if you saw videos of the national forest down there, national park, it's El Junque, and they had trees that were older than Christopher Columbus. Like they were there when Columbus, came around in Ponce de Leon. And yeah, with Hurricane Maria, a lot of those trees got knocked down. But because it's a climate where you can grow all year round, their their tendency to turn, like they were back in business within years. Like the trees were growing, things were flowering. It returned back to normal. Now you take the forest here in New England, if you do a clear cut, it takes more than a couple of years for that forest to come back because really it only grows during the summer. And then if you're up in the tundra, growing season is this short. So you do damage up there, it takes a long time to come back. Steady state equilibrium, dynamic equilibrium, continuous inputs plus outputs of energy, but system is more or less constant. So this is most of our ecosystems. It's not where you can take like a snapshot, like click, and really study it. It's like, and that's what it is. You're always going to have inputs, outputs, inputs, outputs. Think of it as almost like a lunchroom, right? You're always going to have students in there during lunch period. Some come in, some come out, some come in, some come out. So that's a steady state equilibrium. But the noise level, it's pretty constant. So negative feedback stabilizes it, basically self-regulating. Ooh, this goes good with the lunchroom as well, all right? Don't tell administration this one. But when the lunchroom gets a little too loud, too crazy, a lot of students, maybe you, maybe your friends, you're like, I think I'm going to go outside and play basketball. Hey, you know what? I think I'm going to go to the library or like a teacher's room to have lunch, and it's just a little quiet, little downtime. Because when it gets a little bit too loud, too crazy, you're not like really into it as much. So students kind of self-regulate, negative feedback loop with the cafeteria. Look at page 32 and write an example down in your own wording. So right down here, sorry. They're going to want one of these examples here on page 32. So once we're that, we're going to go on to unstable and stable equilibrium. All right, static equilibrium, no change over time. Flat line like that. Forms new equilibrium with any change. So anytime there is something that happens, like, oh my God, new equilibrium, big stuff, man, new changes. All right. Hey, look, we're introducing caterpillars to the tundra. Like, it's normally pretty static, but that's like a game changer, And no, I don't know if we're introducing caterpillars to the tundra. I just made that up. But scree doesn't happen with living stuff because life adapts. Boy, yep. All right, so yeah, scree might actually be the better example. If you've ever seen rock, that like if you're ever hiking and you see like a mountain, but like the mountain's got rock that just kind of like breaks and falls off. It looks like a whole bunch of rock pieces at the bottom. That's a scree field. So it's non-living, but there is a state change. It's no longer one solid mountain. It's like, no, I broke down, and now you got lots of little piles of scree. So, unstable and stable equilibria. Stable after disturbance, system returns to equilibrium. Unstable, new equilibrium after disturbance. So the way it works out is this: unstable versus stable. Unstable is like, okay, new equilibrium and then like after the disturbance. So hurricane hits, washes out, a whole area of beach houses where there used to be land. Now there is none. So that is a completely new equilibrium after disturbance, where you had houses and seagrass and beach before. Now you've got ocean and Finding Nemo. Stable. After disturbance, system returns to equilibrium. Like, what you're gonna have with that is like there's a change, but it's just okay. Goes back to normal. So a snowstorm. Hey, guess what? It snowed. Awesome. Yeah, right. It's like cool stuff. Hey, you know what? In a week it melts. Things go back to normal. So, yeah, things along that nature. Ooh, sorry. Feedback loops. Systems always have info from outside and in. Let's get down to here. Feedback loops is page 33. So you're always going to have input and output, a lot like your checking account. So positive changes, change system to new state. All right. Destabilize as they go. And this is for a positive feedback loop. This isn't meaning like, hey, positive, it's a good thing. So in fact, positive feedback loops are usually not a good thing. So every time it's like a little is good, more is more, more is better, but more is better, and like better is gooder. So you just keep going like this. That's a positive feedback loop. And when they hit, it usually has like a new state, destabilizing as it goes. When you start looking at, hey, they turned on the lights here. And as you start looking at temperatures and, globally, once you get up to a certain temperature, that's like a new norm. So negative, return to the original state, reduce change and stabilizes. So bunny populations, coyotes again. So that's a negative feedback loop. So the amount of bunnies go up, guess what? The amount of coyotes go up. And then the population of the bunnies goes down, coyotes go down. They just keep doing that. Look at page 34 and write an example down in your own wording. Look at page 35 and write down an example in your own wording. So let's take a look at these. Yep, I want you to go to 34 and 35. These are examples of the positive feedback loops, and write down examples. Look at the graph on page 36 to answer these questions. So these questions right here involve this bobcat in the hair. What was the average cycle length for the lynx population? What was the average cycle length for the hare population? Why are there always more hares than lynx? Lynx no longer live in as big of a territory. So when you're looking at this, like the lynx no longer live in as big of an area. This used to be like their ecosystem or where they could live. Now just through urban development, human population size, it's like they're living in a smaller area. Why do you think that hare population still fluctuates with this? Look at the to-do box on page 37. You don't need to make a diagram, but for each number, say if it's positive or negative and why. like, so page 37, right here. This is the to-do box right here. So what they want you to do is, like, for number one, I think I gave this example. As carbon it's negative because as the CO2 increases, heat increases and more plants exist, sucking up more CO2. That's the example. I want you to do that for numbers 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right. Resilience of systems. Bottom of page 37. And then it's going to be partying on down to 38. The more crap a system can handle, it's good. Eucalyptus forest, COVID. So eucalyptus forests are like great. I actually just ordered some eucalyptus candles because I was at a spa recently. No, it wasn't like a spa for like massage and like that. Although they had that too. But it was a spa for like hot tub, sauna, steam room, cold bath, fire outside, and you just kind of cycled between all of them. Now the cool thing was that they also had like some good smelling like eucalyptus stuff. Eucalyptus are these plants, and they kind of grow in a forest, but like from what I've been told, I've never seen one. If there's a fire, it kind of for like the it kind of takes the seeds and burns away like the outer husk or something like that. And so now it makes the soil like black, ripe, and like really fertile. And the seed is now like got its shell off and it's ready to go. So with eucalyptus, like you have to worry about forest fires, but if there is one, they grow back pretty good just through some changes that they've had to the plant itself, so it can get that seed in the soil quick and get the plant up and moving. COVID, the more crap a system can handle. Look, humankind's, we're pretty resilient. That's why we're at the top of the food chain, Look, you throw at us like a major disease, like the pandemic, like COVID, all right, we adapt. We're like, hey, you know what? We're going into lockdown. Hey, we're going to start wearing face masks. Hey, you know what? We're going to do some vaccines. Hey, you know what? We're going to do some treatments that in case you do get sick, you get better. So as a result, guess what? I know unfortunately, there's some people globally who did die, but as overall humankind, we made it through. We're making it through still. Factors affecting ecosystems resilience. That's on page 38 down here. Oh man, get that good there. Sorry, people. All right, normally I'm better at running this. Yeah, there we go, right there. Trying to do this while doing a biking session is rather tough. Factors affecting ecosystem resilience. More diverse equals more resilient. Hey, look, the more different plants you have, the more different animals, the more you can bounce back. Yep. Genetic diversity equals more resilient. Just something I'm thinking about with it. Again, variety. So in the United States, we've got a variety of different people. All right. Genetically, we're all different. And because of that, we're pretty resilient. So, ability to change geographically, more resilient. So, if things get bad, we move to an area that's better. Again, humankind right now, and I'm not going to get political, but like our nation was built off of immigration. So whether you're talking about people coming over like Christopher Columbus, people on the Mayflower, whether you're talking about Irish immigration, African American with slavery, whether you're talking about Italian immigration, like Native Americans were already here, but they came over from Asia. Like, so our country was really built off of immigrants. And that, like, when things are bad in an area, they ain't going to stick around. Humankind is survivors. They're going to go to a different area. So, And we could go just talk chapters about that for each one. But the big thing I want you to take away is that ability to change geographically makes you more resilient. Larger ecosystems are more resilient. Hey, when it's a smaller ecosystem, things can go bad and things can go pretty south. So same thing with almost like your classroom. You know, if like your small class, say you got like 15 to 18 students, if you got that one student that's kind of like annoying, it has a bigger effect on the classroom versus if you're a class of like 30 and you have that one student that's kind of annoying, you're just like, bro, you know? So, yeah. So climate change, climate affects resilience, cold versus hot. Generally, like you want, like in the middle temperature wise, if things are cold, they don't tend to be as resilient. But then again, if they like with our problem in the world right now isn't that we're too cold. The problem is that we're too hot. When things get too hot, look at the Sahara Desert. How resilient is that? So faster a species reproduces, the more resilient it is. So fishing right now, you know, all these people want, you know, like yellowfin tuna, right? Problem is yellowfin tuna, actually yellowfin tuna, swordfish, they take a while to grow like that. So if you were to go out there and catch 100 of them, the ecosystem ain't replacing them anytime soon. Where if you get like fish, and this was a question on the IB exam, I believe, a few years ago, the smaller fish reproduce faster. It's like, oh, okay, you took out like 1,000 of those small fish. Well, guess what? In a month's time, there's going to be, you know, like room for them, and there's going to be 1,000 more. So the smaller fish, the ones that get reproduced faster in the food chain, they are the ones that we kind of as humankind need to focus on in our fishing industries, and not as much on the larger fish. Because when you take a larger fish, they don't get replaced very easily. Humans can remove threat equals more resilient. So this is more that technocentric, or where basically it's the idea that like we have technology or a way to remove a threat. I'm trying to think of an example for this. You know, like invasive species, just taking them out of an environment, that would be a pretty good example. Tipping points. All right, let's see where we're at down here. I think, oh yeah, examples of tipping points right here. We're on page 39. So define in your own words, this involves positive feedback. It has a threshold. Changes are long-lasting, hard to reverse. Time lag between forces and impact. Pick an example from page 39, describe in your own words. All right, so 39. Oh, wait a minute. Hey, there we go. I think that's page 39 right here, but let me take a look. I don't want to lie to you. That's page 40. Page 39 is right here, tipping points. So tipping points. Obviously define it in your own words, but it involves a positive feedback. So what happens is this. I got a buddy over here who's making fun of me. Caballero, ¿cómo está? Bien, yo también. Feliz miércoles. All right, so tipping point. So positive feedback obviously goes like this, and it causes like a new equilibrium when there's a new, like, because once it gets past that tipping point, there's a new normal. So it has a threshold. Once it goes above that threshold, and you really can't predict it. This is why those models are so hard to get. But once it goes past that, you got that new equilibrium. So changes are long lasting. You ain't undoing them anytime soon, and they're really hard to reverse. Think about this right now for climate change. If we had to give up, like, look how, you know, we're trying to go to electric motors, which still use energy, which a lot of it we get from fossil fuels. But if you were to like try to get rid of all gasoline cars, all diesel trucks, like, and you were to do it like that, like tomorrow. Think about how unrealistic that is. I mean, I think Biden was putting out there about how he wants half the vehicles by like 2030 or something like that to be electric, or maybe it's 2050. All right. And that's, right now that's 20 years down the road, over 20 to 30 years just to make a switch. So they're very hard to reverse. Time lag between forces and impact. So yeah, you do something now, ripple effect. It happens down the road. Hey, something about as we go forward, which I don't want, like the way it is I grew up kind of Catholic, and the religion is kind of picked on for mourning like the religion. And just what I want to tell you is, don't, with climate change, don't give up, don't despair. It's really easy to be like shame and be really kind of look at it as a negative and give up. And a lot of what we talk about is all the bad stuff, but like, it's just a problem and challenge, and where there's challenge and problem, there's an opportunity. So, like, to do better. So that's more the way I look at it. And I hope you do too. I hope you don't get too down with this stuff. So, all right. Hey, my best. And I hope your day goes freaking awesome. All right. Bye. Wait, there we go.